Are you building a business, feeling the stress of all the pressures on you, and hungry to learn from other entrepreneurs? Then you're in the right place. You're listening to But First Principles, where we highlight the principles you need to win both at work and at life. Let's dive in. All right. Well, we're joined today by Kathy Corbett with Kathy Corbett Interiors, who's been doing business here in Richmond for a while, and I'm excited to hear your story. So, usually we start out just kind of in a nutshell. What's your story? How'd you get here to where you're at, and what are you doing these days?
Um, well, I'm working a lot these days, and
Yeah.
I guess the quick story is I've been in design since late 80s, mid 80s, really. Started in New York's Garment Center, was there 14 years designing and merchandising, and then got married, moved to New Hampshire for my husband's job, had children, decided that I wanted to get back to work again, and ended up opening up an interior design business to 4 years later move for my husband's job again to Virginia, Richmond, Virginia, and started it up once again.
Yeah, so that's some flexibility, right?
Yeah,
But you've been here for like 20 years, something like that.
yep, a little over 20.
Yeah. So that's remained the same. So it's just really the beginning of your career that there's some switch ups and been doing this for 20 years. And is anything different recently, or have you been able to really maintain the business? Um, you know, as the market has changed and technology has changed and AI and all
Right.
that stuff. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, we are still growing it. We're still expanding. I think the biggest change for me was when my youngest graduated high school. I
Hmm.
became a full-time career woman again.
Yeah.
And I would say that that's really when things took off. That was 2017.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it was kind of a side hustle for a while, while you had kids, and
Mhm.
then when you're able to put your full attention on it, then it really grew.
Right. Yeah. And the time with my kids, I mean, I still had plenty of clients I worked with, and we had small growth. But I would say probably one of the biggest things is that I knew at some point we would really grow it, and it was a good time to really get processes in place, even
Mm.
that were meant to be followed by several people, even though
Hmm.
maybe only one or two of us were actually following them.
Yeah, laying the foundations, like to set you up for scaling and growth before
Yes,
you're
exactly.
even at that point. Yeah, which is what I help clients to do, actually, as
Yeah.
a matter of fact. Um, okay, that's super cool. And in fact, I'm not real familiar with your industry, so I have like a million questions, even just like more foundational stuff about business model. I'm always curious about how different industries make the numbers work, basically. Um, Although we don't have to get into any detail with the numbers. Um, but I'm also really curious about the garment industry, just real quick. I know because that's your background. So, like, what were some of the companies, or would we be familiar with any of the companies that you worked for, or is it sort of like,
Yeah, they're really all gone at this point.
okay,
Um, yeah, I mean, I was never in like that super high-end designer stuff. I was really in the moderate price point. My last job there was really the lower end of things.
hmm,
And that was actually a ball. It's really kind of fun to order, 100,000 blouses from a manufacturer. I mean, it's just like crazy stuff.
yeah.
Um, and making the prices work, the budgeting, what had to go in and then come out of the garment to hit a budget number. So,
Yeah, which I mean, that's the whole world unto itself, which we could talk all day about. And of
mhm.
course, I'm a nerd about business, so I would love to hear what the difference is between like the higher end stuff and sort of the mid tier and the low tier, and
Yeah.
how like sort of that just the volume changes things and all that. We don't have to go into detail, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah. I mean, just like it's, I look at like at one point, Victoria's Secret catalog was huge, right? And I remember they came out with their Christmas catalog one year, and there was a diamond encrusted bra, and it was, I don't even know how much money, $50,000. I have no idea, right?
right, yeah,
All
sure.
they had to do was sell one or two of those, and the catalog made money.
Right.
You know, for the one I was in, being able to take one penny off of the cost of a blouse made a huge difference.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I
brought
mean,
brought in more money than one bra from Victoria's Secret. So that's
sort of like the Walmart model, let's say, right? Where
exactly,
like just
yeah,
half it, or like a
yeah,
tenth of a cent can just make it because it's
yeah,
such high volume, right?
yeah,
Um, but that's not what you're doing currently, so we won't spend much time there. Um, However, I'm sure some of the things you learned there carried over into interior design. And
yes.
what were some of the things that allowed, like, why'd you shift from garments to interior design, and why, like, what was that? What was the connection for you?
Because back in, the 80s and early 90s, New York was where the garment center was. Now it's really decentralized, so that
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be the case anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, I just left it physically completely. So I had no choice.
You had to find something because it just,
Mhm.
yeah, if you weren't there, you were not going to be in that industry.
Yeah, yeah. And I had a girlfriend in Boston who had just bought a business, and she needed her place updated and turned to me. And then, because she said, I know you can do this. But then she told me that if I wanted to do it, she said, I have to open up a business. And that's really how it all changed. And once I got into it, it was like specifying clothing. I mean, I was taking something flat and turning it into something three-dimensional. So, I mean, it really
Interesting.
translated very well.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, that of course I've never been in that kind of thinking, so but that makes a lot of sense just on the surface. You taking a two-dimensional sort of concept and then trying to make it into three-dimensional space, and that's actually what happens with clothing as well.
Right,
Um,
exactly. And it's sourcing different items from different people. In the garment center, it was the zipper, the buttons, the thread, the fabric. Maybe there were two fabrics involved. And the same thing really goes in interior design. And sometimes what you're sourcing is a rug or tile, or it's just it's sourcing, getting the quantities right, making sure it's suitable for the end use.
hmm. Yeah. Okay. Well, and it sounds like it was kind of like a dare almost from a friend who were like, kind of, well, if
Yes,
you're gonna
a
do
little
mine,
bit.
you better open a business. Like
Yeah,
that's
no,
kind
no,
of
that was the condition. I'm not going to let you
yeah.
do this for me when she got me all
Right.
excited about it, unless you fair and square open up a business.
And so was it because she really wanted you to open up a business, or because she wanted it to be as legit as possible, or both?
I think it was she was encouraging me, and
Hmm.
and she wanted to have the work done. So
Yeah. Which
yeah,
is which is great because I mean that's one of the hardest steps when you've I mean it was forced because of the move for you. But for
Mhm.
many people, when they have a corporate job or like a steady paycheck, just making that decision, man, opening up my own place, not being sure about cash flow, exactly how we're going to make this work, all that, um, it's very risky. That's why being an entrepreneur is kind of special. And so there's kind of forcing functions for you that um, you know
Yes,
made it
yeah,
happen. And then okay, well, yeah, and in the early days, did you just work connections you already had? How'd you start out?
yeah. I mean, I did, and I did a little bit of marketing to kind of let people know that I was doing this.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, then it just it had to grow really by word of mouth.
Yeah.
So, except then when I moved to Richmond,
Yeah.
um, I just remember I was one of the first designers ever to have a website. And
Interesting. Okay.
yeah, I mean, you think about it, it was
Like 90s, mid 90s or or
yeah, no, it was
something late
early
90s even?
2000s, really.
Ah, wow. Okay. Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, it was 2005. And so I
Wow.
went ahead, got a website going, and and then of course, whatever. Now it's 20 years later, and everybody has a website. And a
But
lot
at
of
the
people
time
tell
that
me,
was yeah,
yeah, I mean, a lot of people tell me, oh, I'd never hire anyone who didn't have one
right.
because
Of
then
course.
you're not legitimate. But it was just interesting because I knew a website was going to be the only way for people to see what I have done, you know.
Yeah. To get in front of people and also be able to demonstrate the value.
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot of foresight. Why'd you know, why'd you did you have a hunch or did you have a real it sounds like you had a real strong sense that like a website had to be. Was that because of anything like maybe your
Because
husband or something you'd been exposed to, or yeah?
no, it was really just it's I think the first thing is for people visually to see
Hmm.
something that I've done, to
Hmm.
see, oh, she can really do this. Oh, wow, maybe she can
Yeah,
do that for me. And so that's really what it
yeah.
was. It's a very visual business. So you've got to show what you do.
And so that it was just like, well, of course, I'm gonna have a website because it's got to be visual, and
Yeah.
that's the only
I
way
could
to.
just tell people go to kathycorbetinteriors.com and there you would see, now of course that website's expanded quite a bit, but
Sure.
yeah, I really felt like that was the way to do it.
Yeah, it's awesome. Um, so yeah, actually, I'm really curious about the history, but also sort of currently and like how the business has evolved. I don't know. Let me try this. Let me ask it this way. Can you kind of point to different phases that the business went through in Richmond? You mentioned 2017 when you were able to put your full attention on it, but in terms of like marketing, business model, like how you do business, there have to have been like evolutionary stages that took place as you grew to grow it. How,
Yes.
what did that look like? I mean, I know I'm asking you to sort of make this up on the spot because I didn't exactly go over this beforehand, but like if you could do this on the spot, what would the sort of the big major stages look like?
Okay, so I guess first thing is when we moved here and we were looking for a place to live, I
Hmm.
wanted to find a fixer-upper because I knew that that would launch me into, finding a lot of trades I would need eventually. So that's exactly what we did is we bought a fixer-upper and worked with different people on it. And the other thing actually that I did was when I had been up in New England, I had a really good industry network on IFDA, International Furnishing and Design Association. And I had been on their board. They were out of Boston, but they covered all of New England. When I got here, I found that there was absolutely nothing like that.
Hmm.
So I got the IFDA chapter here started.
Ah,
And that was
okay.
in 2005, 2006, and they're still going strong.
Nice.
It's still a great network. And anyway, so that was the next thing that then really got my name out there, probably mostly with trades and vendors. They all knew I was the one who started that chapter. And right there, it gave me a lot of credibility.
Yeah,
So
I mean
that was,
that's wise. Yeah, that's
yeah, I
great.
mean, credibility is a very big thing. I also took out a couple of print ads every now and then because I wanted to kind of distinguish myself from someone who maybe was doing it as a hobby to someone who had a legitimate business.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say the next phase of launching things was doing one of the Richmond Symphony designer houses, which is a huge commitment. It was every other year in the fall, and they
Hmm.
would, somebody would donate their house, I guess, for the month, and there would be a designer that takes over a different room. And I, took over a small room, did an office. And again, that's credibility that you're a big enough business to do something like that because it's a big investment. And yeah, I would say that was probably the next thing. And, really from there, things just kind of grew, ended up hiring someone to help me in the office.
Hmm.
Again, that was just part-time. And, before you know it, it was 2017 and I was going gangbusters. So
Yeah.
I would say, though, the other big phase you can't leave out is 2008. Um,
Yeah, of course. Yes.
yeah. And actually, that was right when I did my first designer house. And I just remember thinking, okay, was this all just a bad investment with everything tanking? But the one thing I learned was that a lot of people who had interior design businesses, who didn't have the websites, who weren't doing print ads, who weren't involved in IFTA, who weren't doing a lot of these things, their businesses came to a screeching halt. A lot of them even just closed down.
Yeah.
But because
Really.
I already had a marketing machine going, I
Hmm.
was able to continue bringing in enough business to stay afloat until things got better.
Okay, that's great. So, like I help business owners set up systems, among other things,
Mhm.
that I would liken to a machine that can run without you. So it
Right.
does not all rely on your effort. that
Hmm.
you set up systems as much as possible. They're as self-perpetuating as possible, right?
Right.
And the three major areas are sales and marketing, operations, and finance.
Hmm.
Now, I also add onto that, there's also um, leadership, which is about building a culture, building a
Hmm.
vision, communicating a strategic plan, right? Well, creating and communicating a strategic plan, and also constant improvement because markets change, technology changes. You have big ideas you want to try out, and you have to kind of pilot different ways of growing. Um, but you try to set up systems in those different areas as much as possible. And then, of course, within operations, there's sort of all kinds of subcategories of internal communications and hiring and, all that stuff, all that fun stuff.
Hmm.
Um, Sounds like you had a real sense for that and sort of business savvy, right? And was that because you had worked in New York and you'd seen how things worked and you knew what a big business did, and so you kind of just naturally did that, or was someone helping you, or were you just did you just have really good instincts? How'd you know to
So
do that?
I think I'm really organized, and I guess I don't know. I it must have, a lot of it was probably instinctive. It wasn't New York. I mean, I grew up
Mhm.
in my dad had a small business.
Okay.
But I don't know that I ever saw systems there or anything like
Yeah.
that. I think it just to me was kind of obvious that, well, if it's not going to be me doing it, how is someone going to know to do it? Um,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. But you also wanted someone else to do and were willing, because that's another issue. And part of the reason that I do like mindset coaching as well, like sort of emotional work, right?
Hmm.
It can be very hard to let go when you did start
Yeah.
it and you are, and like,
Hmm.
you know, it's up to your standards and, like it's when you delegate to someone, almost always, sort of the best you can hope for is like 70% of the 100% you would put in as a
Yeah.
rule of thumb. I mean, certainly there's
Yeah.
exceptions, right? And that's hard. It's hard to do. It's hard to let go of your baby and, delegate. So like but you clearly had it in mind that I don't want to do all this work.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I knew that there's no way, I could grow it without, having, and I still wanted it. I thought we had a good thing going. I had a good thing going with the way I did things.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and a lot of it is the technology that we use. I mean, really
Mhm.
early on, I started using a program that was set up just for interior designers called Design
Okay.
Manager, and it really handles all of the numbers and money, if you will. I mean, and it's data entry once for generating proposals, purchase orders, and then finally invoices.
Wow.
Um,
Wow, that's
and
huge, huge time saver. Yeah.
Yeah, so using that from the beginning was a great way to manage a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, your instincts were to look for those sorts of things and to spend the money on it.
Mhm.
And I guess without, like to the degree you're sharing this publicly in terms of like sort of the business model or financial model, right? How do
Mhm.
you um do you feel comfortable saying like what the profit margin is generally for a job, or does it vary a lot, or is it like from job to job, or
It can vary a lot. It depends on the
yeah,
size of the project and what it
sure.
is.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I know that um, the ideal project for me involves design time and merchandise furnishings. That's really where,
As part of what the client pays for.
yes,
Yes.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the best model for me.
Yeah. I mean, which makes perfect sense. I mean, your time is valuable and your skills and
Mhm.
expertise are valuable, and the outcomes that you get, like the results that the clients get are
Right.
valuable,
Yeah. And
which
my
ride on.
resources are really good. So, I want people to not just pay for my design time, I want them to buy the furnishings through me as well.
Ah, I see. Okay, gotcha. Right. Okay. Through you, right, that you're sort of arbitraging in that sense.
Mhm.
It's okay. So what kind of clients do you deal with? And has that evolved at all? Is it like yeah, what kind of customers are you looking for?
Um, I would say primarily it's It's people, it's a couple both with careers, people who want a well-appointed home, want it managed, and just can't do it themselves.
Yeah. What does it mean to you want that they would want it managed?
That we place the orders, that we schedule the contractors, that we, you know, really handle it all, and that we vet the different people that we'll be using on the project. You know, they know that if they hire me, they're not going to get, you know, a bad subcontractor. And, you know, of course, it has happened that we've had some that have,
Hmm.
you know,
Yeah,
they
sure.
started out great and then they become terrible. You know, and
Yeah.
we cover that. We stand behind what we do.
I mean, contractors are kind of notorious, like any remodeling, right?
Mhm.
Because there's lots of fly by night.
Yeah, and you know what? So
Um,
are designers. We all are. You know,
yeah, yeah. Well, that's true
so
too. I mean, coaches
yeah.
too, right? Yeah, that's
So
right.
yeah, I mean,
Right.
you know, just but we just kind of feel like, all right, our integrity is key. So, you know, I mean, literally, I had a sofa come in where the upholsterer, the furniture company that made it, put the fabric on inside out.
Yeah, that's
And
a problem.
it's a problem, you know. I mean, the fabric happened to look nice on the other side, but it wasn't what we
Yeah, it
ordered.
wasn't. Yeah, yeah.
And they would not, the furniture company
Oh
would not
man.
stand behind it. Yeah. So, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
you know, we ended up covering the whole thing, but that's what we do, you know.
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's which is part of the risk that you take on yourself,
Mhm.
when you're managing all that.
Yeah. And
And
even though we, by the way, we have all of these systems in place that when the furniture order is placed, a sample of the fabric goes with the order and the deposit, showing you how you're supposed to put it on the sofa. But none of that mattered to them. So,
yeah, well, that's exactly what I think. um Especially in the earlier stages, you have to get used to that, like for every level another devil. Like just because you get like the business running, you got systems in place, you're able to delegate, you got great people working for you, it's not like your problems go away.
no, definitely
Like
not.
just a new kind of problem, right? So which again, actually that's one of the reasons that I'm really big on the mindset and emotional coaching. Because like the more stress you can handle graciously, basically the more money you can make because you're able
Yeah.
to deal with those sorts of things and they don't take you out, right?
Yes. Dealing with the stress and dealing with your problems, facing them, don't ignore them, don't run away from them. Um, I think that's big.
Yeah.
People make mistakes, you know.
Yeah. I mean, I mean, planet Earth, right? Things go wrong.
Mhm.
And what do you do with it? Well, that's your choice, right? And how do you handle it? So, okay. And in fact, because I know a lot of interior designers just through networking and, who generally are freelance. In fact, I think everyone I know who's an interior designer is a freelance agent, right?
Mhm.
Um, What advice would you give to folks who are going into the business and who are looking to build a business and maybe start there but want to build something bigger?
You know, I have told some young people,
Hmm.
go and work for someone who's in the antiques business because
Hmm.
you'll learn about furniture making, quality. You'll learn wood species, um,
Hmm.
finishes, you know, an awful lot about that. I also think that learning what you can about fabric and, you know, what fabric is suitable for different things. You know, there are some fabrics that are great for upholstery, but not so great for a window treatment. Been learning a lot about that. And just learning, you know, really what goes into everything that you're planning on specifying.
Hmm.
Um, Learn about how tiles install, learn how carpets install, wallpaper, everything. And you can really start then, you know, judging the people properly who are going to be making things for you.
Okay, and that's really the what your service, right, and the quality of your service. So
Mhm.
really make sure you know what you're doing, your competence. Uh, how about the business side of things as well? Like how do you make sure that the numbers work, basically, and that you're not just. I mean, what happens to a lot of people when they're early on, they say yes to everything, which is fine,
Mhm.
but then you're just running around all the time doing little jobs that don't have very good profit margin. You're not really like stepping up your
Mhm.
game, you're kind of stuck in the cycle. And a lot of that are business questions like how do you market properly? How do you network properly? How do you, price and, message
Yeah.
and, you know,
Um, I think, well, again, I have this program, Design Manager, and I can look
Mhm.
at my numbers every which way from Sunday. And so sometimes a lot of times we'll run a project profit and loss because we want to
Awesome.
see, like,
Awesome.
overall,
Yeah.
how much money did we make from this? Um,
Yes.
what were our margins on the furnishings we sold? And what was the ratio of design time to furnishings dollar wise? So
Oh
that's
man,
one
this is
thing
so
to look.
good. This is exactly what I recommend to again to
Yeah,
clients. Like do run the numbers post-mortem to understand really what you're doing,
exactly.
right? Yeah.
Postmortem. Yeah. Yeah. Find out if this kind of a project is worth taking on.
Yeah.
In some cases, like I got one sitting on my desk right here, it was like, do we want more projects like this? Was it worth it?
Yeah.
Conclusion is yes, this one went well. Then the other thing that I take a look at the end of every year is by category. So like window treatments, furniture, wallpaper, art, accessories. What was my gross margin on all of those?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yeah,
That's
and
awesome.
lighting.
Yeah.
And we have a target gross margin that we want for every single category. And if we didn't hit that target, then we want to take a look at why. Like for a long time, lighting was a very low margin category, and it's because I didn't have direct accounts with a lot of the lighting companies.
Mm-hmm.
So we started getting very aggressive about that, and now, of course, that's a much better gross margin.
Margin. Yeah.
So it's things like that. Another thing to take a look at is at the end of every year, I run a report by dollars of my best clients.
Yeah. Yes.
And you take those top
That's
20, 10, whatever it is, how did they find me? And that's what I have to put my marketing effort into.
beautiful. This is awesome. This is exactly yes. Two ways to look at and I would put this into the bucket of business model, right?
Mhm.
Like what is your business model? Well, it's who you're selling to, at what profit margin, what services you're offering to them,
Right.
right? So essentially, like by service or by category, what's the profit margin look like? And by customer, what does the profit
Mhm.
margin look like? And then you can make some better decisions on, well, I mean, if I'm going to maximize profit without cheating anybody, really delivering value, how do I do that? Right. Um, yeah, that's fantastic. And then of course with you in your industry, sourcing and like you're saying with lighting, right? It seems like you're pretty good at connecting with people, or at least you're really driven to connect to make sure you have a solid network. Um, can you yeah maybe tell us a little bit about either where you got that or why you do that or you're like
Um,
yeah
yeah, I mean, I joke around with people, I collect people. Um,
right.
there's a lot of talent out there. By the way, especially in Richmond. I mean, you've got a lot of really talented people and think that
It's a
it's
cool,
of
cool place. Yeah.
VCU and
Yeah.
yeah. So, if you can't design, well, a lot of designers design things that they don't actually have the resources to make. And
Yeah.
that's just, to me, irresponsible. So if I'm going to design something that's like a table that's got a metal base and a wood top, I want to make sure I've got the resources to get that done. Because
Hmm.
all you're doing otherwise is just exciting your client about something that you can't actually
Yeah.
give them.
Just
Um,
fantasy. I mean, yeah.
yeah, I mean, so you need all of these different makers in order to do that level of design. Um, and I think that that's what it is for me, is that there's a lot of cool stuff I can design. I want to make sure I got the right people to make all that for me.
Hmm. And so you just knew you needed that. And I mean,
Mm.
sorry, what was the organization again you were involved in? You were on the
Um,
board in.
I, IFDA, International
Yeah.
Furnishing and Design Association.
All right.
The other organization I'm very involved in is Pro
Hmm.
Remodeling. And
Interesting. Okay.
I'm very involved in a lot of remodel projects. So it's good to know a lot of different people who can do different projects. so I have a repertoire of people I can, refer out to clients depending on what the project is.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's, like big part of what I do is find the universal principles that apply to different businesses, different industries. And this, I mean, everything we're talking about, these are all things that you can apply in any industry with some variation, right?
Mhm.
But the strength of your network is really the strength of your business's resilience. Because when
Yeah.
things do screw up, or like when mistakes are made, or when markets shift, or whatever, the stronger your network, the more you can tap into places. There's always places where things remain strong. And, as things crumble in one area, you can shift to the other. I mean, is that accurate? Is that,
Yeah, it is.
yeah,
Yeah, you need to be able to constantly reinvent yourself.
right.
Um, you know,
Well, and actually, I kind of asked this before. Is there like certainly you're in a business where tastes like with clothing, like their trends and that sort of thing. Um, how much work have you had to do consciously to stay on top of trends and to make sure that you're, you
yeah,
know,
well, I just got back like 2 weeks ago with my took the design team over to Italy to
oh wow,
Salone dei Mobili, which is the world's largest furnishing show. And it was also Milan Design Week. So there was a lot just going on in Milan as far as you name it.
yeah,
We
fashion
probably saw it.
design, yeah,
Yeah.
wow,
Well, it wasn't even fashion, it was all interior design.
okay,
And it was an overwhelming amount of inspiration and seeing what's going on out there.
that's so
Picking up
cool,
some new suppliers, but mostly really just seeing what the world is doing. And that's big. I mean, we want to know what's happening. We want to know what new technology is coming. And I think learning a little bit more about some of the products.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, we put a lot of effort into that.
yeah. So like generically speaking, like trade shows, sort of conventions, associations, just staying plugged into their events and staying plugged
Mhm.
into, um,
Yep.
yeah, the people who are involved in those, so you can know what you can keep a pulse on industry shifts and what's up and coming.
Yeah. I mean, and some of it is, it's not so much the trends like, hey, yellow is in this year. It's kind
Right.
of the trends of, 3D printing and how that's evolved.
Yeah.
Digital printing on fabric and wall covering and whatever else out there. And just seeing, where it's going, the latest thing that people are doing with it. And this year was like what they call a lighting year at Salone. And just to see the evolution now of LED lighting and what people are
Interesting.
doing with it is amazing.
Sure.
Uh, you know,
Yeah, it's a
it's a,
technology that changes what you can do and how you
right,
can, put it
right.
into a fixture.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. And yeah, you enjoy staying on top of these things and
Hmm.
you
Yep.
want to continue growing. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And we will continue growing. So,
What are your ambitions with the company then? What
um,
do you hope to do in the
well,
next?
recently we got a Class A remodeler's license,
Okay.
contractor's license in
Okay.
residential building. And we would like to start, some of these smaller things that our clients want us to do instead of sending them to 5 different contractors to work with. We want to take it all under our roof and manage it and, really run it. I mean, in the past, it's, well, you'll need to, get a plumber to do this, an electrician to do this. They're writing checks to all these different people. Now it's just all going to run through us. I mean, we end up managing the project anyway.
Yeah,
So
you're
we're just
basically a
taking it
contractor.
in-house.
Yeah. So that's interesting because when I think of interior design, again, I'm fairly ignorant of the industry, and one of the reasons that I was excited to talk with you, I love again learning business, right? So, um, I think of just having a space like you've bought a home, and let's say you bought a home that was built, in the 90s or whatever, and you want to update it, and the existing space I've thought of it as working with the existing space, but if you want to remodel it, that's something different. But obviously those things overlap. That's one and
Right.
the
We do a
same
little bit
most.
of both. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, well, how much like, can you walk us through kind of like the sort of typical or ideal scenario where a customer gets in contact with you, falls in love with what you're doing, you guys have, whatever strategy sessions you execute. What does that look like? Kind of customer journey, right?
Yeah.
Or is it so varied, or is yeah,
It's so varied. It
yeah.
depends. Yeah, I mean, I recently worked up remodel plans for a townhouse in Scott's Addition, and put together all the specifications for it, and then gave it to my client. Introduced her to several contractors she could talk to and
Mhm.
interview. And that project is now getting started. And eventually, we'll touch base again and we'll start talking about the furnishings.
Okay. What, yeah,
There's
once the space is actually changed, like walls or whatever, or the
Yeah, exactly. And then there are other projects where, no big remodeling needs to be done, but someone will say, hey, I want to, update my dining room. I want to make it, a great place to gather during the holidays. I want it cozy,
yeah,
whatever. We'll
yeah.
come in and we'll say, okay, let's put in a chair rail, let's put in some wallpaper, let's do a ceiling feature. So I'll, have some millwork put in the ceiling. Maybe a decorative artist comes in and paints, maybe wallpaper goes in. So, I mean, we do stuff like that too. We change out the light fixture, maybe leave the table and do new chairs, new rug,
Mm.
window treatments. So really, it really just varies to, on what the client is looking to do.
Yeah. And is it almost always like a private residence that you work in, or do you do much it's commercial?
I do some commercial. I'd love to do more. We just worked with one company on their offices, just picking out paint colors throughout. We put in a couple of accent walls of wallpaper where we did these custom murals.
Mm.
So things like that, updating lighting. So yeah, I mean, we do some commercial stuff.
But your bread and butter has really been in residential, and that's where you've been.
Mhm.
That's where you started, and that's yeah, been.
Actually, I started in commercial. The first
Oh,
project was a commercial one.
oh,
So
right, yeah, you mentioned,
yeah,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
right. Um, hmm. So, yeah, man, I had something that I wanted to ask you about that. Yeah, I mean, well, I guess in dream scenario, let's say, you're retiring whenever that is, right? Many years from now. Where would you love the company to be? What would you love it to look like?
I think I want it to be something that maybe potentially somebody could come in and buy the business from me.
Yeah,
Um, whether they're just buying the location and the resources or um, that's
the
kind of what I
brand.
see.
Yeah. And how many employees do you think you would want to have, or how, like, more than one location or just one location? What's your vision?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there could be more than one location,
Okay.
for sure. Um, Although that doesn't stop us from working on projects out of state. So,
Yeah,
but I
not
do
really
think
in this.
more than one location is a possibility.
Hmm.
And yeah, I don't know that I have any goals on how many people I want working for Kathy Corbett Interiors.
Yeah.
Um,
And that's okay. Well, that's which is fair because that's not. I mean, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I worked a lot with personalities, and personality profiles can help a lot to
mhm,
understand, get a sense for people. Although people do not fit within boxes, so don't get me wrong, right? But from what you've described, the kind of personality you are, often your type of personality is more the COO who like makes the numbers work, makes sure everything works, and it's just kind of focused on the next step and making it work, right?
mhm,
The more visionary types are often the owners of companies, the CEO, right? Who just want to do this and that, and they've got this big grand vision and like things that they see like 10 years out and whatnot. But it sort of doesn't surprise me that you don't have this big grand vision because that's not really your personality. But you're very happy that like, man, this is successful and this is going well and this is, 20 years is no joke. Like in
Yeah,
the same
yeah,
small business, right? So that's something to be proud of. But you're not like projecting out 100 years and like you're going to be the next Kraft Foods or whatever, I'm just
yeah,
to throw out a name, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
yep.
Very cool. Um, well, let me ask another kind of a visionary question, but what's your passion? Why do you do this?
Um, I enjoy design.
Yeah.
I enjoy travel. So I mean, am I allowed to say money? I'm driven by money. I
Of
want to
course,
make
you're allowed
money. I
to say
want my
that. Yeah.
time to be useful.
Yeah.
Um, I want to be able to hire good people and pay them fairly.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, that's really what drives me.
Yeah. You enjoy it and you can make money doing it.
Hmm.
And it's satisfying to see a job well done.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's
It is.
fantastic. I mean, honestly, like I would also describe you as a pretty modest person. Like you're pretty straightforward in your answers. You're just, I mean, maybe modest is not quite the right word, but like, your answers are pretty straightforward, right? So you're a pretty
Yes.
straightforward person,
Yeah, I
right?
tell people I grew up in New Jersey and we don't have filters.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So what you're thinking is what you're going to hear.
Yep.
Pretty
Yeah,
much.
I don't have a poker face either.
Yeah, neither do I. Actually, I'm probably too
Yeah.
animated. But yeah, no, that's great. So yeah, pretty straightforward. Just like enjoy the business and
Hmm.
okay, well, and I sort of asked this before, but um if you could help out, entrepreneurs who are up and coming, maybe maybe just one, two, or maybe three lessons that you've really learned that you think are really the most valuable.
Um, don't ever stop networking. Don't
Hmm.
ever stop putting yourself out there. Um, I mean, I've seen a direct correlation many times. Get too busy, you get bogged down with work,
Yeah.
you're not out there, kissing babies and shaking hands, and your
Yeah.
business will drop off.
Yeah.
Um, so that's, I think, one really big thing. And then I think the other big thing I would say is do set up a process for everything. And my feeling is if you can't write it down, then you can't follow it.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. I think it's a great rule.
so
Yeah. Okay. So if you're going to be setting up a business, make sure you're able to connect with people and you're also able to set up systems.
yep,
Yeah.
yeah, that's
Which,
right.
I mean, actually, that's kind of sort of the dichotomy I work with. There's sort of psychology and there's systems in business. And,
Mhm.
like psychology is maybe not exactly networking. It's not exactly the same thing, but people, right? Understanding how people tick and being able to connect with them and influence them as a leader. Because if you own a business, you're
Mhm.
ipso facto, a leader, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I just and really put yourself out there. Don't be afraid to. Don't feel like, I think one of my daughters had a figure skating coach who wanted her to get out there and emote and be emotional on the ice. And she's like, "Oh, but I feel so ridiculous." And the coach said, "If you don't feel ridiculous, you're not doing it right." And I think that that applies to so many things. If you don't feel ridiculous, you're not doing it right.
I love actually, yes. Yes. I mean, in coaching, so much of business development, personal development, just, you're getting past your comfort zone. That's the whole point, right?
Yep.
You're
Yeah, yeah.
gonna feel dumb doing it because you haven't done it before. And that's
Yeah.
like that means growth.
Yes.
That's
Yeah, it does.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's fantastic. Cool. Okay. Well, so I mean, I really appreciate the time, we've spent together, and that's about time, for, keeping the way this is set up. So, who would you love to connect with and how could they get in contact with you?
Well, Kathy at kathycorbetinteriors.com.
Your email.
Um,
Okay. Straightforward.
yeah, I mean, I'm on Instagram and Facebook and whatever. You can connect that way too. I would say the people that I want to connect with are connectors, people who can help find me either my ideal client, people who might have a skill that I should know about, or know somebody who has a skill I should know about. Um, so that's who I would say. I
Yeah.
really
And that's a
did
wide
that.
variety of industries, it sounds like, because it's, I mean, like interior model, remodelers, contractors,
Mhm.
um, and then there's like sort of the furniture and furnishing side of it, which I'm, not as
Exactly.
familiar with. And
Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Very cool. Great. Well, I really appreciate the time spent together and just learning from you because this is not an industry I'm real familiar with, but um, it is quite a thing to carry a business for 20 years, and that's
Yep.
so fantastic.
Yeah. Sometimes I can't believe how much time it's been.
Yeah,
Yeah.
time flies.
Yeah.
So, cool. Okay,
Okay.
well, great. Thanks,
Yeah.
Kathy.
Yeah. Hey, thank you. I enjoyed doing this. And yeah, if you ever have like any opportunities for me to be on a panel or whatever, please think about me because I'd be really happy to help you out with that.
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
cool. I'm gonna stop here and
Okay.
we'll talk to you later. Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Have a good one.